What if I told you? A man once sold the Eiffel Tower. Not once, but twice. And somehow, he got away with it. This is the story of Victor Lustig. A man so convincing, he made people hand over fortunes willingly. Victor Lustig was born in 1890 in what is now the Czech Republic. From a young age, he was different. Not stronger, not faster, but smarter. He was incredibly observant. He watched how people talked, how they dressed, how they reacted, and more importantly, he learned how to become whoever he needed to be. By his teenage years, Lustig had already begun traveling across Europe. He spent time on luxury ocean liners, not as a passenger, but as a professional gambler and small-time con artist. These ships were filled with wealthy people, businessmen, investors, tourists, and Lustig studied them. He learned how rich people think, what they fear, what they want, and he realized something powerful. Wealthy people don't just want money. They want exclusive opportunities. Opportunities no one else has, and that insight would define his entire career. Lustig wasn't just a scammer, he was a psychologist. He understood that the best scams don't rely on force. They rely on ego. He later developed what became known as the 10 Commandments of the con. Rules like always be a good listener, never appear bored. Let the victim feel smarter than you, because when people feel in control, they stop questioning things. And that's when Lustig struck. In 1925, Paris was dealing with a problem. The Eiffel Tower, once a symbol of innovation, had become expensive to maintain. Newspapers were filled with complaints about its cost, and Lustig saw an opportunity. He forged official government documents, booked a luxury hotel, and invited a group of scrap metal dealers to a private meeting. There, he introduced himself as a government official. And then he told them something shocking. The French government planned to sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal, but it had to remain secret. Imagine hearing that. A once-in-a-lifetime deal, a chance to profit from one of the most famous structures in the world. The room was filled with excitement, but Lustig knew exactly who to target. One man. A businessman desperate to prove himself. Lustig pulled him aside privately and hinted that a deal like this might require a personal incentive, a bribe. The man paid. Lustig took the money and vanished. Here's what made the scam truly genius. The victim never reported it. He was too embarrassed. He had just bought the Eiffel Tower. And that silence gave Lustig confidence. So he returned to Paris and did it again. But the second time didn't go as planned. The victim reported the scam. Authorities began searching for him, so Lustig fled Europe and arrived in the United States. But instead of laying low, he got even more ambitious. In America, Lustig created one of his most famous cons, a device that could supposedly print money. He demonstrated it carefully, feeding blank paper into the machine, and slowly producing real dollar bills. What victims didn't know was that the machine was preloaded with real money. It worked just long enough to convince them, long enough for them to invest thousands. By the time they realized the truth, Lustig was already gone. Lustig operated across major cities like New York and Chicago. He lived under dozens of fake identities, dressed sharply, spoke confidently, always one step ahead. At one point, he became involved in large-scale counterfeiting operations, printing fake money. That was so convincing, it nearly destabilized parts of the economy. Now, he wasn't just a con artist. He was becoming a serious criminal target. Then came one of the most unbelievable moments of his life. He decided to approach Al Capone, one of the most feared gangsters in the world. Lustig asked for $50,000 for an investment. Capone agreed. But Lustig didn't run. Instead, he returned the money, saying the deal had failed. Capone was shocked. In a world full of criminals, he had found someone who appeared honest, so he rewarded Lustig with $5,000. It was one of the smartest psychological moves he ever made, but eventually, his luck ran out. The Secret Service tracked him down for counterfeiting. He was arrested, tried, and sentenced to prison. He was sent to Alcatraz, the prison no one escapes. Victor Lustig died in 1947, and his death certificate listed his occupation as apprentice salesman. But history remembers him differently, as the man who sold the Eiffel Tower to eyes.